Madam Speaker, I seek leave to move the following motion. That the House, 1, notes A. The Prime Minister's failure to lead an open and transparent government despite promising the Australian people he would. B. The repeated failure of the Minister for Immigration to answer questions inside and outside our parliament. C. The government setting aside of ministerial responsibility to pursue media spin. 2. Calls upon the Minister for Immigration to immediately explain A. Details about the boat carrying Somali asylum seekers that arrived in Darwin on the 11th of November this year. B. Reported statements by Basarnas concerning the Australian interception of an asylum seeker vessel and subsequent actions and events on or around November the 7th. And C. How the government intends to pursue its election commitment to turn back boats to Indonesia and buy back boats in fishing villages.
He has asked for leave. His leave granted?
No, Madam Speaker.
Leave is not granted.
Madam Speaker, I move that so much—
I give the call to the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that so much of standing and sessional orders be suspended as would prevent the honourable member for Maribyrnong from moving the following motion forthwith. 1. That the House notes the Prime Minister's failure to lead an open and transparent government despite promising the Australian people that he would. B. The repeated failure of the Minister for Immigration to answer questions inside and outside the parliament, and the government's setting aside of ministerial responsibility to pursue media spin. 2. Calls upon the Minister for Immigration to immediately explain details about the boat carrying Somali asylum seekers that arrived in Darwin Harbour on the 11th of November 2013, reported statements by Basarnas concerning the Australian interception of an asylum seekers vessel on or about November the 7th, and C. How the government intends to pursue its election commitment to turn back boats and to Indonesia and to buy fishing boats in fishing villages. Madam Deputy Speaker, why is it that Australians can find out more about Australian government policies in the Jakarta Post than from the hapless Minister for Immigration? This government opposite, they promised to be an open door and transparent government. They made it incredibly clear, they made a lot of noise that they would in fact be an open government. Now, many Australians, I suspect, have not signed up to a subscription to the Jakarta Post. Instead, they hope that our own media are able to tell them what the government's doing on an important issue like boats. But can they find out in our own media all of the details? No, they can't. They need to rely on Indonesian newspapers to tell them what the Australian government is unwilling to tell us. Speaker, before the September the 7th election, they said these people opposite were going to be the big champions of accountability. Instead, the Australian government is treating Australians very poorly.
I would remind the Leader of the Opposition that he is speaking to a suspension motion and he is providing reasons for the suspension.
It is very important in order to suspend the orders, in order to have the debate, because Australians deserve better in terms of finding out what is going on with important policy issues. But we know that this is a government who love to hide and make the Australian people seek out what they're doing. For instance, if they were not so addicted to hiding from the Australian people, where is the budget update to justify what's going on with increasing our debt to $500 billion? They have refused to provide timely and detailed information about boat arrivals and interceptions. We saw that remarkable display from the Minister for Immigration, where whenever he's asked a question about matters, he says it's an operational matter, or he says it's not Friday, or he says the matter's on water. Members of the House, what boat issue is not going to be on the water? There is an arrogance creeping into this government which has even been identified by members of the media. Respected political commentator Laurie Oakes has written that it is disgusting and that the government is thumbing its nose at the voters. In 2010, the Prime Minister said to the same respected journalist that his position did indeed change his mind in response to changing circumstances. But the only changing circumstances about the requirement for openness is that the opposition leader was elected to be the Prime Minister. He said the last thing we want to do is hide anything from the Australian people. Before the election, he said he would issue an alert whenever there was a boat coming through. Now he has gone back on that promise. We believe, he said in full disclosure, there is no full disclosure underway in this government. And what he actually says about turning back the boats, and his spokesperson says, is we won't tell you. We heard question after question today saying, how many boats have been turned back? We got the ridiculous explanation that if we told you how our policy is working, somehow the boat smugglers, the people smugglers, would be encouraged. Any simple exercise in logic says that if you're beating the people smugglers, why not tell them? Why not tell them indeed? The issue is that this is not the government that they promised to be when they were elected. We are then told that when a boat comes into Darwin Harbour, we can't talk about that because it's not a Friday. Australians deserve better. We know that this is a government who, in opposition, are so addicted to saying one thing in opposition and another thing in government. They said that Labor was scaring people about massive cuts. And what do when they get in? They cut the superannuation benefits of 3.5 million Australians. Only a coalition addicted to secrecy could say that it is better to give 16,000 people with $2 million in their superannuation to give them a tax break, but 3.5 million Australians—
I would ask for the Leader of the Opposition to return to the subject of the standing order suspension, which is relevant to this debate.
I appreciate what the Madam Speaker is saying, and it is our intention to suspend standing orders so we can address the issue of secrecy, so we can address the inability of the Minister for Immigration in particular about his inability to explain and to hide behind everything's operational, everything's to do with the military, everything's on a boat, everything's at water, and he is at sea. But when we also talk about this matter about the Prime Minister promising to lead an open and transparent government, he also came up with another cracker of a slogan. He said there would be no surprises and no excuses. But when something's an operational matter, that's an excuse. When something is at sea, that is an excuse. Why is it that after all the good work that the previous government did building positive relations with Indonesia, these foreign relations vandals have got into power and they start dictating what should be the case to other countries? Diplomacy requires respect, not providing any debate or respect and telling people what to do and simply treating everything in terms of the next domestic slogan is not the way to conduct a government. Most importantly in terms of this proposition, Labor on this side knows that the Australian people deserve the respect of a full explanation. Day after day, we have seen the Minister for Immigration deny, obfuscate and avoid the real issues. Today we saw a brazen attempt. When asked, what is it that we can't tell Parliament today that we'll tell tomorrow, we got an explanation unprecedented in Federation. It's not in the folder. What will we get next week? The dog ate my homework, I left my running gear at home and my explanation was there. It is not good enough for a Minister of the Commonwealth to say it's in the folder. And if it's not in the folder, then I know nothing. Even Sergeant Schultz on Hogan's Heroes, at least he said, I know nothing. What he should have said is, it is not in the folder, therefore I know nothing. It is not appropriate to say if it is not in the folder, well, I can't help you. If all we get from the Minister for Immigration is a folder carrier, is a post box, is someone who says, I can't help you today, but I might come back tomorrow, the business of government is not a Friday matter and the other 6 days you take off. The business of government is not hiding behind the military and saying 5 times in a row at a press conference, handball to the military. The military should not be used to do the job of ministers. Ministers should be used to do the job of ministers. And it is not enough and it is not satisfactory to say we can't tell you how many boats we've turned back because that might tell the people smugglers what's going on. I actually think that the Minister for Immigration inadvertently tripped over the truth.
The Leader of the Opposition will come back to the suspension question.
Of course, Madam Speaker, and I appreciate your guidance. The Minister for Immigration stumbled across a correct morsel of an answer in amongst the nuggets of nonsense. And what he said is,
suspension starts with an S.
The answer, if I give it, will encourage the people smugglers. And I go, aha, a light bulb moment in the Minister for Immigration. Of course the answer will encourage the people smugglers, because it's not working. I understand why he doesn't want to answer it, and I love these people opposite. I don't, but what I appreciate the inadvertent humour of those opposite. They say 75% numbers down. Well, of course they are, because of Labor's PNG solution. Be gracious enough to give a little bit of credit. But what I would say in conclusion is this. It is not satisfactory to say that if I didn't bring my folder today, I'm not playing and I'm not answering questions. It is not satisfactory to say a matter relating to boats is on the water. Thank you for that, Descartes. What I say is that, it is water, therefore I can't answer. It is not good enough. The Australian people deserve better, and our communications from the coalition should not be via the Jakarta Post. Do better, Minister.